Hello everyone, this is Karen the Forest Empress, and I just wanted to actually make a short introductory video so I could tell you a little bit about myself. Since I started reading tarot cards on YouTube, and I've been getting such a great response. So I just wanted to share a little bit about myself so you could get to know me, because I've been getting to know a few of you in the comments, and I've really been loving that. So I've always been reading tarot cards since I, can remember, and I've always been interested in, magic and sorcery and divination and things like that. So it's always been a huge part of my life. But what I really do for a living, aside from raising my 2.5-year-old at home, is I actually write books. And I write mostly in the young adult genre, although nowadays there's something called the new adult genre, which means that the books are initially written for a young adult audience, but any age could actually enjoy them. So you could probably think of many series right now that are popular in our modern day pop culture that would fit into this genre of new adult. So I actually write mainly in fantasy and young adult contemporary. So let me tell you a little bit about my books. First, let's talk about my fantasy series. It is called the Forest Spirit series, and it embodies pretty much a little bit of everything that I love. The first book is called The Falling. It follows a group of nymphs who are joined by a salamander and a fairy in an enchanted forest. Now, this group has to go on a quest to save their forest that they live in from a spiritual imbalance that is kind of wreaking havoc on all the kingdoms of the forest. And now we have kingdoms of fairies, nymphs, which are like little tiny people without wings. You have trolls and gnomes, and then we also have various kingdoms of animals that live within this enchanted world that I've created. So The Falling is the first book. It follows that group that I told you about, and they are set to kind of find out more about what's going on, and also they find out that they actually need to face one of the higher spirits, which has actually fallen from grace and become negatively influenced, and that negative influence is just exacerbated by the underspirits, which are in the underworld of this fantasy world. And so that's the first book. That's The Falling. And then the second one is out too. This is called The Haunting, and it picks up right where The Falling left off. And The Haunting is actually my favorite book that I've ever written, because I predominantly read horror, even though I write fantasy and contemporary. But so this book, fits into that genre a little bit more, because it is a little bit spookier. The villain is a zombie nymph, and there are goblins and ghosts and all kinds of creepy things. But there's also a lot of fantasy woven in there as well. So this is the Forest Spirit series, The Falling and The Haunting. The third book, which is called The Reckoning, will actually be out later this year, probably in the summertime. And so that's the fantasy series. The fantasy series is written under the pen name T. Damon, which if you go on Amazon, you could look up The Falling by T. Damon or The Haunting by T. Damon, and it'll come right up where you can buy the books in paperback or on Kindle. Now, the other books that I write are kind of more of like, I kind of secretly write them because they're under another pen name, and they're in the young adult contemporary genre. The first one that I wrote, which was published a couple years ago, is called A Girl Named Dracula by K.L. Teal. And this is a book about a young girl who is actually entering high school, dealing with all of those changes in her life in the midst of a falling out with her best friend. And while this is going on, she and her friends are actually kidnapped by a group of guys who want to hold them for some ransom money. And one of the kidnappers actually ends up being someone who's kind of interesting to our main character, whose name is, oddly enough, Dracula, but there is a reason why she has kind of such a funny name, and the book goes into that as well. The other book that I have in the young adult contemporary genre is kind of another high school coming of age type of drama. It's called Anthropoidea. And the word Anthropoidea actually refers to the grouping of animals or the grouping of monkeys and humans in the animal classification. So it's actually about a boy who is kind of a little awkward. He has a best friend who is a girl, and he is secretly in love with her. The girl is in a band, which is pretty popular in their town. And he is assigned a project with his friend that they have to go do some research for a religion project, and they end up interviewing a psychic who turns out to be a witch. And although most psychics and witches are actually very good, this one is not. And, you know, the main character upsets her. She puts a curse on him that actually turns him into a monkey. And so he is spending the rest of his time in this book trying to figure out how he's going to change back, trying to figure out, you know, if his friends are going to recognize that it's him. And while all this is happening, he's also discovering more about his heritage. He's actually Hawaiian. So he finds out that his grandfather is a kahuna, which is kind of like a Hawaiian witch doctor. And so this might actually be something that can help him. Anthropoidea is very dear to my heart because my family is actually from Hawaii, and when I actually looked into my heritage, I found out that I have some kahunas in my ancestry, and so I really wanted to kind of get into that in this book. Both these young adult contemporaries are very personal to me because they actually have a lot of personal stories in them, and there is a little bit of me in every story that I write, but in these two in particular, I guess I must have had a really fun time in high school, or it was very memorable because these two books kind of came out of my high school experience. But I don't think I could ever write a book that didn't have some kind of fantasy element to it. And so, you know, in A Girl Named Dracula and in Anthropoidea, both of them have, you know, some kind of fantastical elements to them that you'll discover as you read them. All 4 of my novels are available on Amazon.com, so you can search for them. You can search for The Falling by T. Damon, or The Haunting by T. Damon, or A Girl Named Dracula by K.L. Teal, or Anthropoidea by K.L. Teal. And I just want to say that since, you know, in the short time that I've been doing these YouTube readings, I've gotten such amazing positive feedback from everybody that it's really, you know, kind of, you know, lit a fire under my butt to get me to do it more. And I've just absolutely loved, you know, meeting everybody, learning everything about that I can about everyone who has commented, and it's absolutely taken my breath away how amazing everyone has been. And I really, really, really appreciate all the likes, comments, shares, subscribes. And I look forward to meeting more of you and spending more time with you, reading your tarot cards, and, you know, whatever else ends up happening in my future here on YouTube. So thank you so much. Take care. I will see you for the May 2017 tarot card readings. And until then, take care. Bye.